Hello, everybody. Great to see everyone again. I think I did the AI moment a few months ago, maybe almost a year at this point. And I wanted to sort of follow up on it. So I'm just going to kind of give a minute recap. And then I had something to show, and it kind of broke before this. So I'll just show kind of what happens under the hood instead. And last time we talked about, these big LLMs, we prompt them, they give us back text, um, and sometimes they hallucinate. Sometimes they give us good answers, sometimes not exactly the answers we want. We've been working for a while now on tr the best practices for using LLMs for classification, categorizing, things like that. Sometimes you have a simple task like you need your emails sorted into categories, or you need to know whether a document is one of a certain type of documents. And instead of asking sort of a free form question to an LLM like, hey, here's a document, what is it? You want to say, I have the following list of document types, and I want to categorize this document into one of them. Maybe I'll say, here's a description of each document type. Can you do this? Um, and one of the benefits of sort of traditional categorizing AI models is that they can be trained on historical data or other data sets that you have, and they'll give you sort of a confidence value of how confident it is in its categorization, and that lets us make decisions based on how confident the model is. Do I want to go forward with sending this to a certain person if the model's not so confident that that's the right thing to send, etc. The LLMs don't typically do that. Usually they'll just say yes or no, and even if they're not confident, they'll say one or the other, and they won't tell you how confident they are. And if you ask them how confident they are, it doesn't necessarily reflect how confident they really are. That's what we showed last time. This time, what I wanted to show was how we can use that in practice and make a classifier. I had a little app for it. Unfortunately, that is not showing today, but I'll show instead kind of some of the basic underlying what happens from OpenAI, and that will actually be faster, so it'll be more in line with AI Minute. Let me share. Yes, this screen. Okay, so this is just some of the code that goes into the classifier. Essentially, we can call OpenAI's GPT, and I think I showed something similar to this last time. You want the model to give a random number between 1 and 10. That kind of gives you a number of options. And typically what we saw last time is it will always, well, not always, but almost always give back 7 when you ask for a random number between 1 and 10. But I can limit its outputs to certain tokens. So if I say I only want you to say 1 or 2, it will tell me, in this case, the answer is 2, because 2 is just more likely than 1. But you can see if I ask it to give me the log probabilities, meaning the LLM is just telling me each token, how likely is it to be the next one after I ask for a random number. 7 is always the highest, but since I limited its probability to 1 and 2, I can say 1 or 2. So if I say, how are you feeling? And this can kind of, you can think of this as a general classifier. Tell me good or bad. Then it will say good. Now, in this case, it didn't want to say good or bad. Really, it would have responded with some sentence like thank you or being great or as I am an AI model, I can't feel anything or something like that. And that's what these log probs are telling us that it really wanted to say something else. But since I'm limiting it to good or bad, it will just pick good as being more likely than bad. So this is kind of the core of the classifier function, essentially, which takes an LLM and converts it into a categorization machine by giving it only a certain number of outputs that it's allowed to use, and then telling us which were its most likely, giving us a confidence for each of those values. And that values, essentially, this allows us to convert any LLM, essentially, as long as it gives us these probabilities, into a more traditional classifier that gives us confidence values, probabilities, so to speak, for each of its categories that it is able to map to. I hope that's helpful.
Oh, wow, Jacob. All right. So, a couple questions in terms of just how I'm thinking about this, and just a quick follow up for you is basically what I'm taking away from this is you have so if I'm putting a prompt into GPT right now, or if I'm using the API,
Hmm.
I have to put the classifiers in there. Otherwise, I'm going to get some probabilistic answer, right? So I
Yeah,
have to give it.
essentially, if you're using GPT raw, so to speak, so GPT has the freedom to tell you whatever it wants, and it doesn't tell you how confident it is of a certain response. So if I say, like a classic classifying task, like here's a movie review, is this positive or negative? If it's a mixture of positive and negative review, then a more traditional classifier will say, well, this is 40% negative and 50% and 60%. I think it's positive. Whereas a typical LLM, if you just say, hey, is this review positive or negative? It'll say positive. And that's kind of limiting the power of the LLM because really it should be able to tell us more than that. And by looking at its probabilistic output and sort of limiting the tokens that it's able to return, we're able to sort of mimic the output of a traditional classifier in that way, if that makes
Wow,
sense.
super
I
cool.
feel
Yeah.
bad because I had a nice visualization of it to show with like a bar chart with the probabilities at the output, but maybe for next time we can do that.
Why don't you record it and put it in our LinkedIn group? Let's do that because
Sounds
I,
great.
I am very interested in seeing this. I know many of us probably are too. We've been burned too many times by hallucinations. So, getting smarter about how we prompt and interact with a large language model is definitely on the forefront. So, thank you for that, Jacob. Appreciate your time.